Well, welcome back, everybody. I am here in the Shire for my, what is this, fourth session now. Today we are going to go to the northern and northwestern parts of the Shire as I continue my adventures. As I just mentioned, I don't have my audio still worked out. I'm still trying to sort that. So for those of you who are attending live, you're not going to hear game sounds. I hope that the people who are watching the video recording after the fact will be able to hear the game sounds, but I never quite know about these things. So anyhow, you remember we left off in Hobbiton, and we're actually in the daytime again. I can't even believe it. It's morning, so it's probably going to be daylight during the entire session today. How very exciting. But we had just finished up in Budgeford, and I'm going to head back to... I never did give all that saltpeter to Hyacinth Took for making Lobelia's fireworks, so we're going to head back up there and do that. Now, one thing that I wanted to mention about Budgeford, that thing that we didn't do in Budgeford, which is kind of a fun quest chain, is there are rumors of a Black Rider terrorizing people in Budgeford. And we didn't get a chance to investigate that. It's a fun quest chain. So if you're in game, you can go to Budgeford, but you have to go at night and talk to I think it's Odo Bolger to get the skinny on the Black Rider that is terrorizing Budgeford. So anyway, like I said, it's daytime, so we're not going to get a chance to do that, and we need to move on to different. We've spent enough time in Budgeford. But okay, hey, no problem. All right. You could do without the smell of saltpeter. I totally understand. Okay. All right, where are we going now? Overhill. Okay. Some woodcutters gather timber from the Bind Bowl wood. Okay, all right, let's I'm sure he's going to bully us anyway, Hyacinth. I can't really help it. Okay, so we're going to go to Overhill. Now, Overhill is just north of Bag End, so we're going to head back where we came from here and go back up to Bag End. So, by the way, any questions that people want to start with, I'd be happy to, while I'm walking here up towards Overton. There's Overhill, I mean, not Overton. Overhill, which is, of course, I mean, it fits with the geography of the Shire as Tolkien gives it in the map. But Overhill, of course, is one of those places. You know, so many of the names in Tolkien, especially in Tolkien's earlier works, such as The Hobbit, for instance, in the earlier part of the Lord of the Rings, a lot of the Shire names are names which are just simply descriptive, right? I mean, he does that a lot. Like calling the river the water, for instance, or calling this town of hobbits Hobbiton, or calling the hill that Bilbo's house is built in the hill. You know, so you know, we see that kind of thing, and not to mention Rivendell and Dale and Lake Town and the Lonely Mountain and all of those kinds of things. Almost every proper noun in The Hobbit is just a common noun made into a proper noun. So the town of Overhill is kind of like that, but going to Overhill in game really kind of gives you that that sort of sense, or sort of makes sense of that even more clearly, because we get you know, you have to go over the hill, and when you go over the hill and down the other side, you're in Overhill. Of course, it makes perfect sense. But again, that's exactly sort of the logic of Tolkien's naming strategy, especially in sort of the earlier and simpler areas. He indulges himself more in, you know, Elvish names and proper nouns of alternate derivations in the Lord of the Rings. You can see even towards the end of The Hobbit, as for instance, when he confides in the reader in The Hobbit that the real name of Lake Town is Esgaroth, right? And Esgaroth is one of the few examples of that kind of name that we get in The Hobbit itself. It's easy to forget that, because of course we know many of the other names. For instance, Erebor, right? The Lonely Mountain is really called Erebor. The name Erebor never appears in The Hobbit. Never anywhere. You know, we know that the name of the Elven King, who's just called Elven King throughout the book, is Thranduil, but that name is never used in the Hobbit itself. So that it's just again, it's kind of fun. So as I said, I like Overhill, and I like this sense of of how obviously descriptive it is. What else would you name this town? It's just over the hill, but of course it's over the hill from a Hobbiton-centric viewpoint. But it works geographically too. Hobbiton is pretty close to the center of the Shire, so moving outwards from the center, we get to Overhill. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Ferrar was asking, is there something in this region of the Shire that was created by Turbine and is not a part of the book lore, but you feel is worthy of a mention? Well, we're going to be looking at some of those things. Well, I mean, we're going to be looking at some events and things that are happening, which are not only not mentioned in the book, but which one could easily argue are in conflict with what goes on with what we see of the Shire, what's described of the Shire in the book. But I actually think it's interesting the way that Turbine approaches that. We're going to look at those. So storylines and that kind of thing, we certainly get that going on. But but geographically speaking, I mean, like map-wise, almost nothing. Almost everything on the map that we see here is on Tolkien's map of the Shire. They stick very close. I mean, when I first was exploring the Shire, there were a bunch of these things that I didn't recognize because they never get mentioned in the text. So I'd forgotten about. I'd spent less time poring over the maps than I spent reading the text, right? So like the Rushik Bog, and I was going through the Rushik Bog. I'm like, I don't remember the Rushik Bog in the Shire, but you look at the Shire map, sure enough, there it is, right? Vinebowl Wood, Rushik Bog, Needle Hole, they're all there. So actually, geographically speaking, there are very few elements of the map that are not in the books. Okay, here's Holman. Yes, Holman. I like that. Of course, it's a very hobbitish name, Holman, right? Charcoal, yes. Oh, good. I'm so glad. Oh, but guess what? You're going to send me on an errand, aren't you? Of course you're. Hey, I just leveled up. I acquired 2 new skills. All right, hang on, Hart. I'll come back to those in a second. Okay. All right. Bears. Oh, there's a huge bear that you need help with. Okay. All right. Hey, if I can take on 3 or 4 bears at once. Hey, Spring Festival. Not right now. Can't go to the Spring Festival, thank you. But, okay. All right, so I got to fight a bear. There's something kind of charming and fairy tale like about this. Hart Holman, of course, is a woodcutter, and so the idea of the woodcutters, of course, are sort of stock figures of fairy tale tradition, right? Mostly because forests are a very common setting for fairy tales, especially sort of the traditional German fairy tales, right, where we're going into the Black Forest, and woodcutters, of course, are usually they're like the reconnection with humanity. They're this part of the humanity that's sort of fighting back against the wild forest. This is why it's sort of fitting that it's a group of, it's both sensible but also sort of fitting in a deeper sense, that it's the woodcutters who in some versions of the story rescue Red Riding Hood from the wolf, right, or who kill the wolf. So that's that kind of thing happens a lot. So I always think of fairy tales when we have the woodcutters here. But of course, again, as I mentioned before, we have the relatively persistent attention to overall Shire economy, right? Of course, this is one of the this is really the densest patch of woods. The Vinebowl Wood is the densest patch of woodlands in the Shire, and quoting that random line from the Silmarillion out of context, they do have need of wood, right? And yet they do have need of wood. Owley says that to Yavanna. If you don't recognize the line, don't worry about it. The context isn't super important. Okay, but I have to check on my skills to make sure I can survive the huge black bear here. So what does Addle do? Okay, causes them to fail skill attempts. That seems spiteful. And their subsequent skill attempts will briefly take longer to execute. Well, take that, bad guys. Okay, yeah, your skill attempts are going to take longer to execute, so don't mess with me. While stealth, I may attempt to... Ooh, burgle. Okay, that's cool. So I can pick people's pockets. I'm going to have to try that. Okay, all right. I'm not going to pick the pockets of my fellow hobbits, though. That wouldn't be right. But the minute I find a troll, I am going for it, man. I don't care. Don't even bother me about alarmist talk of the purses of trolls being the mischief boy. As soon as I see a troll purse, I am going for it, and it can shout out all it likes. Okay. Hey, a goblin. Where's my stealth? I don't even remember how to stealth myself. I've been oh, here we are. Oh, over here. Okay. Shh. All right. All right. Let's see. All right. I'm gonna pick his pocket. Hey, goblin. Hey, I did it! I stole his hat. Oh, that is so cool. What did I get? I got a pointy hat. The goblin was wearing a pointy hat, and I stole it. And I'm already wearing a matching pointing hat. Oh my goodness! Oh, how embarrassing when you when you pick a goblin's pocket and you not only steal his hat, but then you discover that you're wearing the same hat. I mean, what a moment of social embarrassment that is. Oh boy, Mr. Graham's foot piercer. That's really embarrassing. So I'm going to stab you in the back instead, because I must avenge my fashion choices. Okay, all right. Now you'll notice the name of that goblin. That is, the label on that goblin was the Graham's foot. What was it? Graham's foot, something or other. Where's my combat tab? Graham's foot piercer. Okay, yeah, that was it. Okay, he's a Graham's foot piercer. Why Graham's foot exactly? That's not an arbitrary name. That's a book-related name. It comes up very, very briefly, but it's in the description of the Bull Roarer's battle, when we get the reference to the fact that Bull Roarer fought it is the goblins of Mount Graham that he fought. So we have a reference here. So these goblins, who are apparently invading the northern part of the Shire. We are up in the northern part of the Shire now, so it's going to be a little bit sketchier up here, up by the mountains, and the path up to Evendim. That's up, Deadman's Dyke isn't too far away from here. We're still in the Shire, but things are a little shadier up here. So apparently the goblins from Mount Graham, from the foot of Mount Graham, apparently that was a spear thrower or whatever his job was, of the goblins from Mount Graham, is hanging out around here. So, okay. All right. So we see how when they're integrating goblins into the Shire, they're still trying to root it into Hobbit specific lore background, right? These are like the descendants of Golfimble, the goblin who, here's Bear Central up here. Hi, excuse me, there's a very large black bear that I'm looking for. Have you seen a large, oh, no, you haven't, have you? Okay. Well, that's fine. I appreciate nah, it's good. It was nice talking to you too. So let's see, with lots of bears. Oh, there you are. I see the black bear. Hey, can I pick a bear's pocket? You think? Let's see. Shh. Nope. He saw me. Oh, man. Oh, you got nothing. Boy, I am just, he's pretty big, that bear. He's so big, I want to eat something. I'm going to have, what did I get? I got some cram. I'm not quite sure where I got the cram, but I did get cram. Actually, I'm going to go the other way around. Instead of going right for the black bear, I'm going to pick off his companions one by one. Come here. I'm going to pick your pocket. Can I pick a bear's pocket? Oh! Okay. Bears don't have pockets. Fine. I'm so proud of myself. I stole a pointy hat. Come on, black bear. Oh, no good that is. Boy, they really do hang out by the wood pile. Okay. All right. I got your black bear. Well, that was exciting. Okay, and my first burgle. I had heard, of course, rumors from other higher level burglars I'd met in game about the pocket picking skill, but that is pretty cool. I will always cherish the comical pointy hat that I stole from the first goblin of Mount Graham that I successfully burgled. It's very exciting. But okay, back into Overhill, and let's see if what's his name, Mr. Hart Holman will. Oh, and Hart, of course, is an excellent name too. Again, very. You'll notice that you can tell from his first name that he is, he's not from Hobbiton, right? He's not a city hobbit. He's a woodland hobbit, right? Because of course, Hart means stag, right? It's a male deer. It's the Middle English name. Hart and hind are the two Middle English words for buck and doe, deer, respectively. So he's named after deer because he's up in the woods here. He's a woodland dude. Yeah, that's right. Good. Well, I'm happy to help. If you have any other big black bear problems, you know who to talk to. Excellent. So we've got the charcoal. That's very good. Okay. Let's see. But while we're here. Let's, there's something else I want to do while we're here. Let's see. I think it's this guy over here. Is it Gamer Boffin? No, it's not Gamer Boffin. This is the one I want to talk to. Did I already talk to him by accident? I was exploring around here before, and I might have talked to him by accident. It might be this dude. Oh, yes, it is this guy. Sorry, the spider plague guy. Yeah, so I already talked to him. So, okay, so his problem, he was delivering mushrooms in his wagon when all of a sudden his wagon overflowed with these spiders, which apparently the mushrooms he was delivering were just lousy with spider eggs, improbably. And they just like burst out everywhere, and he ran off because he's a hobbit and terrified of that sort of thing. So he abandoned his wagon and he wants us to go check it out. So okay, so sorry, I apologize. I accidentally already accepted that quest. So let's go find his wagon. Hey, a goblin that close to Overhill? We can't have it. What you got? Anything? Don't worry, the novelty of this will wear off eventually. What did I... Oh... I didn't seriously acquire a matted fur from him, did I? That must have been from the bear I killed. I think it didn't work. Oh well. No, I don't have my second burgling triumph. Okay, all right. I'll stop amusing myself. All right. So anyway, so off to get this guy's cart now. So this is interesting. So we have spiders apparently up here in the Bine Bowl Woods. And my first reaction to that is sort of like, okay, come on, people. Like, seriously, spiders in the Shire? Like, again, I like the fact that we're choosing a sort of hobbit role. The fact that they, all of the enemies that they put in the Shire are all things which either would be genuinely likely to be there, such as bears. I'm sure they had bears, or it's something which is connected, explicitly alluded to, such as the wolves crossing the river in the fell winter, which we talked about that last time in Budgeford, such as the goblins, of course, from Mount Graham. Now, spiders, obviously, this is not that. Again, very very much connected with Bilbo and his adventures in The Hobbit. So the fact that spiders would be kind of adopted as a hobbit sort of issue, as a hobbit enemy, makes some sense. Again, it's better than choosing something totally random, I suppose. But come on, in the Shire, again, that's my first reaction, is that it seems a little bit much to believe that the spiders, which were, they were a Mirkwood thing, they're not just everywhere, that they would be appearing here in the Shire. But I do like the fact, at the very least, that that the game has at least sort of given a rationale, right? It's not just that, like, oh, by the way, the woods in the North Farthing are totally infested with spiders. Bill didn't realize this, of course. Never actually comes up in the books, but well known, actually, off-scene, that there's spiders all over the place in the North Farthing. No, it's not natural. They've just sort of appeared here, and we have a mechanism by which they've appeared. So we are kind of coming at the root of the problem here. Mr. Otho Broadbelt was the unknowing, unsuspecting vehicle, literally vehicle, I suppose, for the spiders to enter the Shire. So again, it's it's the kind of thing you can see them, them deviating here. You can see the direction that they're deviating. They want to have more dangers in the Shire. We need more enemies to face. Again, that's sort of the function of the game, right? Is we need obstacles to overcome and enemies to fight. And so, the choice of spiders is sort of interesting. But they don't just assume. They don't just kind of change the whole story, right? They don't say, oh yeah, you didn't realize it, but there are spiders in the Shire. In addition, I think it's really interesting that, in part, even the very reaction that I have, my initial reaction there, to say like, oh, that's not the way the Shire is. As I mentioned last time when we were looking about sort of the anticipations of the scouring of the Shire that we get in that Garibert took quest chain that we were looking at the time before last, we get these anticipations, right? These anticipations of things changing in the Shire. Is this the Shire that Bilbo and Frodo knew? No. The Shire of Bilbo and Frodo did not have spiders in the North Woods. But then again, the Shire that Bilbo and Frodo knew wasn't being overrun by ruffians either, right? Things are changing, times are changing, and it's touching even the Shire. You think of sort of one ultimate possibility for the Shire is the vision that Sam saw in the Mirror of Galadriel, which is partially fulfilled and partially not, of destruction coming to the Shire, right? Destruction does come to the Shire, at least significant destruction comes to the Shire. In the end, it's not ultimate destruction, of course. But again, the world is changing and things are moving. So, it's, again, is it a little bit over the top? Yeah, it's a little bit over the top. But I still feel that it doesn't inhibit me kind of getting into it. And the more I think about it, the more I kind of like it. Okay, so no spiders. No, sorry, dude, I don't know what you're talking about, Otho. Huge, monstrous things. Where could they have run off to? Okay, let's see. I hate to make more work for you, but it seems that the spiders infesting my wagon have run off. Yeah, they did. Yeah, they could become a threat, theoretically. I should report this to the sheriff in Hobbiton, Robin Smallborough. You remember Robin Smallborough? Robin Smallborough is one of the sheriffs that gets mentioned in the Return of the King, right? When we come back to the Shire. He can usually be found in the ivy bush. Yeah, he likes the inside of an inn better than the outside. That's what I hear anyway. Yeah, but the last thing the Shire needs is an infestation of spiders. I totally agree. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. Let's see. Patreon, let's see. Are we too late for that? Oh, no, we're not. Here, hang on a second. Kate Arona has a question about this over here. Okay. Some say the Golden Perch is the best beer. She's talking about the beer. Yes, go on. Gotten to know each other rather well. I'm starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable eavesdropping on this conversation. I've enjoyed very much our time together. I'm going to stealth myself because I'm embarrassed. Okay. I'd like to spend more time with you. Oh no. Oh no. He's going down on one knee. Oh my goodness, it's a Hobbit proposal. Oh, Ardo. Absolutely. Ardo and Anula. Yay, let's go tell your parents. That's just adorable. That's just adorable, isn't it? So Kadriana's question is, do I think that marriage proposal is how they would have acted out such a proposal in the Shire? I wouldn't be at all surprised. That sort of adorable, we're sitting on a bench by a pond and chatting about the beer and the way that this seems to have grown from a friendship. It's a very homey touch. I mean, I don't really know exactly what it was like, but you think about the only actual the only actual evidence we have is Sam's proposal, of course. That Sam is the only hobbit in the Shire that we know, that we watch get married. Of course, in fact, it's significant that Bilbo and Frodo are not married. Remember, even the narrator in the introduction, in the Concerning Hobbit section, points out that Frodo and Bilbo as bachelors were exceptional. That was unusual for hobbits to remain unmarried like that. But Sam is the only one that we actually see get hitched. Remember the way that Sam alludes to it. He and Rosie clearly have what I think back in the day they would have called an understanding, right? It's not just that he likes her, and this is something that is significantly altered in the movie. If you think of the movie version, where Rosie is the barmaid at the Green Dragon, and Sam finally, after their return from their journey, plucks up his courage and goes and just like apparently proposes to her in the bar, as far as we can get from it happens off screen, but as far as we can tell from the film, that's what happens. It's very different in the book. In the book, he alludes to Rosie Cotton a couple times, but he doesn't really let too much slip about their relationship. But it's very clear in The Return of the King, when he gets back, that he and Rosie had been, again, to use the old phrase, walking out together. They had an understanding, but he hadn't spoken yet, right? It says that, he says, again, he explains to Frodo, that he says, Rosie didn't like my going away at all, it turns out. But as he hadn't spoken, she couldn't say anything about it. But now he, when he returns, he does speak, and she says that he's wasted enough time. You remember this conversation with Frodo at the end of The Return of the King, so that there is it. In other words, this sounds very traditional, very like late 19th century English, courtship practices, basically. So, does that depiction seem to me fitting? Yeah, that the man would be the one to speak up and to go down on one knee and propose, and then they go run off to tell her parents. Of course, to be even more traditional than that, he would have gone to no, you do propose first and then you go to the parents, but not just to inform the parents, but rather to ask their blessing or permission. But apart from the fact that they don't seem to be actually asking the permission of her parents, it seems perfectly fitting. Okay, here's Robin Smallborough. Okay, yeah, he's right to be concerned. Yeah, I've already had reports of dangerous spiders. Wow, word travels fast here in the Shire. North and northwest of Overhill. I think I'm going to send you to look into this problem. Well, I am a bounder and you're a sheriff, so your job is to stay in the pub and drink, whereas mine is to go beat the bounds. I totally get the delegation here. That makes a lot of sense. Try to kill as many of the spiders as I can and explore the north end of the woods to see if I can find their nest. Okay, all right. I will definitely try to do that. And now notice that the Sheriff Smallborough is no action hero, right? Did somebody just come by with a gigantic shrew? Did I just see a gigantic shrew belly up to the bar here at the Ivor? You see the strangest things around here sometimes. Anyway, Robin Smallborough is no action hero, right? We're going down to tell the sheriff. I don't know what Otho Broadbelt's plan was when he sent me down to talk to Sheriff Smallborough. Whether he expected that, I almost fell off the bridge, that Sheriff Smallborough would spring into action and come up and do something about it himself. Instead, he, with great promptness and intrepidity, delegates it to me instantly to go and do something about it, while he stays there with his pint of ale. But again, that's what sheriffs do, right? They're not primarily, not only are they not adventurers, they're not even really policemen. But again, it's sort of a fun glimpse, I think, into Shire culture. St. Joan has asked, Could the spiders have followed Sharky to the Shire? I doubt it. I mean, I doubt it. And I doubt it for two reasons. Reason number one that I doubt it is that we have no real reason to associate spiders with Saruman or the armies of Saruman. Spiders don't seem to be a Saruman thing. Wolves, orcs, especially half orcs. Those are Saruman things. But I don't think we have too much reason to be thinking about spiders associated with him particularly. But the second reason is that geographically that doesn't seem to fit. What I mean by that is what we've seen already, and we were looking at last time in the adventures we were doing in Tuckborough and Budgeford. We're seeing two different incursions in the Shire, right? As the danger is growing in the Shire, and as we're beating the bounds and exploring this and finding this out, the two different things that we're seeing are, first, that something is coming up from the south, right? These ruffians are coming up from the south, and they seem to be associated with this Sharky person. But there's also danger coming down from the north, in particular in the person of Laugfoot the Warg, whose quest chain we explored last time. That there's something even darker and more sinister, darker in the sense of being, it's not just human ruffians coming in. That's alarming, but it's not disturbing in the same way as monstrous creatures like that giant warg coming down and even sort of influencing the Shire in the way that they do. Okay, I'm in the middle of bears again, and I don't think I want to be. Where are we? I've gone the wrong way entirely. Excuse me, bears, if you don't mind. I'm just gonna kind of go around. You're gonna chase me. Ooh, a backpack. Is that bear fighting me way over there? Oh, here he comes. I was gonna say, boy, he stopped to growl really early there. Okay, thank you. Because there's some treasure over here, and I'm a burglar, so, Somebody dropped their backpack, probably when they were being chased by bears. Nice, okay. All right, so I'm going to go over and try to find spiders. Boy, are there a lot of bears around here. I am just awash in bears. But anyway, so as I said, we have the threats from the south and the threats from the north represent, anticipating the two different things, the two different sources of danger, the two different elements of danger that we have encroaching in the game in general and in the Shire here in particular. Saruman from the south, and the evil of Angmar, which appears to be arising again in the north, at least in some comparatively limited form, that is compared to the the days when the Witch King himself was down there. I now am going to jump off a cliff, which doesn't seem like a good idea. My goodness, I almost did fall off the cliff. I'm getting lost here. So anyway, so that's why I would not. That's the main reason I would not expect the spiders to be associated with Sharky. Because they seem to be, especially since we're up here in the North Farthing, they seem to be associated with generally with the northern threat. And again, that seems to fit a little bit better. They're more giant spiders infesting the woods seem to have a little bit more in common with Laugfoot the Warg than they do with Sharky's ruffians. Okay, I'm seeing green onions, I'm seeing strawberries, I'm seeing boars. Where are these spiders? These theoretical spiders. What's going on here? What happened to all the spiders? Somebody just come through here and off all the spiders? It's always a possibility. I'm reasonably certain. Look, I located the source of the spider before I found the single one. Okay, here's one. Spiders have pockets? just, you know, scientific curiosity. No, they don't. Oh well. All right. How am I supposed to kill 6 of these? No problem. Oh, yeah. Yes, okay. So, these spiders have made a mess of things up here. A dwarf barrel. What's up with that? I just picked... Oh, right, they need that at the Green Dragon. Okay, yeah, sorry, I didn't even remember that quest. I'll do that later. Yeah, in the Shire you can do all these quests for the different bartenders. They all send you on different quests. Hey, look at that. Boy, that's not creepy. Okay, actually that is creepy. Alright, there we go. Those 2 were my 6. So back we go. I've got to go all the way back to Robin's Smallborough. Okay. Now watch, I'll probably run into 10 spiders between here and there this time. Okay, but let me check and see any further questions that have come up. Happy to answer other questions. I think I had a question in a piece of mail, which I don't remember now. What was that question? I don't remember. Look at... Oh, I don't want to get attacked by a boar. Look at all the food that's growing wild in the Shire. I remember Sam's comments in the Two Towers when he gets to Ithilien, and you know, in the of herbs and stewed rabbit chapter, and he's he comments on Ithilien, how when he's sending Gollum to go and fetch herbs and roots, and he would have him look for taters, but he doesn't have any real hope that he'll find any taters. And he says, there must be all sorts of things growing wild in this country, and and I love that you see that in the Shire. If you're a cook, if you do the cook crafting skill, you can collect all of this food that is growing wild in the Shire and use it in recipes to make food. That seems to me very fitting. It's all over the place in the Shire. Okay, here we are, going past... people with horses. Poor Gryfflet doesn't have a horse yet. I'll invest in a horse at some point. Good, almost back to Sheriff Smallborough. Now, of course, one thing, I say, on the one hand, it seems like a long walk from up where the spiders were all the way down to Hobbiton again. But again, this is one of the things, as I mentioned in one of the previous broadcasts, one of the things that you just can't replicate in a video game is true scale, right? You can't. I mean, we just traveled in those couple minutes from up here, Lob's Grove, where the spiders were. That's the nest of the spiders we just came from, up north of the Bindbowl Wood in the hills. We can't. To travel from there all the way back down to Hobbiton would be a walk of several days in the actual Shire, as Tolkien described it. So, we just did that in a couple minutes. It makes it impossible to recapture the way in which people talk about the Shire, right? Even to which people talk about the world of the Shire. Again, if you draw boundaries on the Shire map of how far Sam Gamgee has been in his life, according to the Fellowship of the Ring, it's a pathetically, you can walk across it in Lotro in like a minute and a half. You just can't recapture that sense of scale. Okay, right, you have to get past the webs. I have to get past the webs, right, to destroy the nest. Oh, I see. How would we do that? Who in the Shire would be an expert on giant spider webs, possibly, that would help us get past this? Answer, Gammer Boffin. Gammer Boffin in Overhill is a wise old lady who knows all kinds of things about herbs and such. So, a gammer, of course, remember, is the female version of gaffer. Gaffers and gammers are old men and old women in respectively in the Shire. Gammer Boffin is a wise old lady who knows about herbs, right? So this is where, you know, we don't have wizards in the Shire. We have old gammers who might know herb-based home remedies for giant spider web that could be applied to giant spider webs. Even though doubtless Gammer Boffin has relatively little direct experience with giant spider webs. All right. Hang on, let me dig in my mail for a second. So I want to find that other question, because it was definitely a question. Herodrush asked a question. Pale folk. We'll talk about the pale folk later on, because that's not relevant here in the Shire. But when we meet some, or we get to some places, oh, fairies, right? Okay, thank you. Yes, I just jumped into the river because that seemed to be the thing to do. Okay, so Herodrush was asking about fairies. Did Tolkien believe in fairies? This is a good question, and you know, on the one hand, it might seem, you know, it might sound to people like a silly question, even an insulting question. If you read on fairy stories, for instance, it's a question that really presents itself. On Fairy Stories is a scholarly lecture on fairy tales and the interpretation of fairy tales. Yet in it he makes several references. He refers to elves and fairies in such a way that he seems at least to leave open the possibility that they do in fact exist. He doesn't appear to rule it out in his prose. And, you know, it's an interesting question that you kind of have to ask yourself. Did he really mean that? Is he just kind of playing? Is it kind of part of the act, right? He's talking about fairies and fairy tales. So, you know, sort of within the frame of talking about fairy tales, he's going to sort of, you know, leave open as a theoretical possibility the fact that they exist, or is he actually expressing his own convictions about that? And I'll tell you, it's not just the Book of Lost Tales. If you read any of the early stuff that he wrote, and I'm thinking here in particular of his early fairy poetry. There's a lot of fairy poetry that he wrote, which is not just, hey, Gammer Boffin, untangled webs. Yeah. Spider webs. Yeah, they do stick to everything. So you've got a cobweb cure that we can mass produce, maybe. Slug slime. That sounds unpleasant. Okay. 6 drams of slug slime. Okay. Hey, La Pucelle. What's up? Okay. Hey, is Saint Joan in the chat the same person as La Pucelle in the game? I'm guessing that, as La Pucelle was the nickname of Joan of Arc. Anyway, just sort of guessing there. So anyway, so fairies. In his early fairy poetry, he has a lot of sort of first person poems that are spoken in the first person, which are about a human who is either seeking the elves or seeing the fairies. That is, he uses the uses the word elves, but he uses fairy much more often earlier in his career. So anyway, so does he actually believe in them? You could easily come to think that he does, right? That is, he. I'm thinking of poems like Criterion Among the Trees, where which is a great poem that he wrote originally in 1915, if I remember correctly. And it's about living in this town where humans now live. Christopher Tolkien tells us that the town in question is actually this, the city of Warwick. And he... so the speaker of the poem says that that city was originally built by fairies. It used to be called Corturion, and the land around it, the land of elms, was called Alala Minore. And the poem contains many references to his experiences with catching glimpses of fairies and hearing echoes of their songs, the lonely companies that remain, but they've faded and diminished, and you can barely hear them or see them, but there are some people who are attuned to them and who can still perceive them and who appreciate the land all the more for the fact that it's still connected with the lonely companies and the holy fairies who remain. No, it's just a poem, right? You always have to be really careful. Just because a person writes a poem whose speaker is the first person doesn't mean that it's an autobiographical poem, right? So we can't make that kind of, it's a very dangerous assumption, and we can't make that kind of assumption. But, right? But, you know, you add these things together, and it's easy to sort of begin to wonder now really in earnest, did Tolkien really believe in fairies? There's another element that I would add to it, which makes the sort of belief in the fairies at least sort of somewhat plausible. And that is when you consider it from a medieval point of view. Tolkien, turning the question around in another way, do you think it's weird to believe in fairies? Do you believe in fairies? If you don't believe in fairies, why don't you believe in fairies? And I think most people in the modern world who didn't believe in fairies would give two reasons for not believing in fairies. And I think that Tolkien would consider these reasons, one of these reasons good and the other reason bad. The bad reason not to believe in fairies is that everybody knows that fairies don't exist. You know, this sort of modern conviction that this stuff must be sort of irrelevant, and like any of these things that people used to believe in, we in the modern world are now much more sophisticated and intelligent than those old people who used to believe in fairies were. So therefore, obviously, fairies can't be true. That is what Tolkien called chronological snobbery. So that's not a great reason for not believing in fairies. A good reason for not believing in fairies is that you have never heard anybody who believed in fairies that you would believe, right? That is, I mean, if you have never heard stories of the sight of fairies or something, you know, if you've never heard evidence to convince you, you know, evidence that you would consider credible, then you wouldn't believe, right? And that, I think, Tolkien would consider a good reason not to believe in fairies. Hang on, let's talk to Hyacinth. All right. What's the next part, Hyacinth? Brimstone and sparks. Okay. Yeah, first wolves, now a bear. I'm ready. Bring it on. And I'm the bounder, exterminator of fearsome threats extraordinaire. Bears, wargs, spiders, you name it. Okay. Brimstone and iron filings. Where can we go? I always go to the dwarves for that stuff. Okay. All right. Up to Needlehole. Got it. Okay. Up by the Rushik Bog, where there are, I'm going to go overland. Let's go for a ramble across the fields. Hope nobody sets his dogs on us for trespassing. But this isn't the Marish. You know, people aren't suspicious like old Farmer Maggot is, so nobody will probably attack us except possibly shrews. But I got a little something for them if those shrews get uppity. He's running away from me. Cowardly shrew. Anyway, so fairies, as I was saying. A good reason for not believing in fairies is that you have never heard any accounts of fairies that you would consider credible. Now, what does this have to do with Tolkien? Tolkien, as I said, was very resistant of chronological snobbery. The mere fact that lots of other people didn't think, can I jump over this? I can jump over a hedge. I am something else. The mere fact that modern people dismiss out of hand the idea of fairies is mere chronological snobbery, and I could see Tolkien being resistant to that. What's more, in the Middle Ages, people did believe in fairies. That is not the same stories about fairies that they used to tell in where exactly am I on the map? Okay, I'm going to want to head this way. I'm going to want to pick up the road here eventually. No, can't jump over that hedge. Oh, I got some wolves. Oh, yeah, I've gotten into the wolf farm with the chicken on the roof. Being chased by a wolf. It's all good. But I'm going to keep talking about fairies, despite the fact of being chased by Dora Brownlock's wolves. Okay, so fairies. In the Middle Ages, they did believe in fairies. Not Victorian fairies. They didn't believe in Tinkerbell. They didn't believe in the tiny little fairies. They had very different legends about fairies. It is derived from the medieval stories about fairies that the Tolkien's elves, as they are eventually conceived, are drawn. So we get the fact that elves are not tiny, but in fact quite large, not quite as large as people, but some of them taller. And that they are noble and regal and in fact sort of terrifying if you meet them, and have this wonderful presence and this great power. This is what elves are like. You might meet elves in the forest in a medieval story, but if you do, they won't be hiding inside or behind of flowers and under leaves. They will be, likely, unless they're in disguise, decked out like an emperor and extremely intimidating to meet. And okay, what is the Russic bog? Well, I wouldn't want to build a summer home here, but the trees are really quite lovely. Sorry. I'll be done with the Princess Bride soon, and I'll stop making Princess Bride references. That's probably not true. But anyway, as I said, the medievals did believe that such creatures as fairies existed, and they went to great lengths to sort of theorize what their origins could be. They didn't really know, but what their origins could be, where they came from, and how they fit into the larger cosmological picture that the fundamentally Christian medieval world invested in. So, in other words, for Tolkien, here we have this group of people whom he does respect, that is, medieval writers and thinkers who did believe in fairies. Does that mean that I think Tolkien necessarily just took their word for it and believed in fairies too? No, not necessarily. I don't think he just sort of blindly took for granted that fairies must exist because people in the Middle Ages thought that they did. But he wouldn't have dismissed that out of hand, and it would. I do think that he had enough respect for them, basically, to go more actively in the direction of not scoffing at them. Right. That is to say, he would give it the benefit of the doubt. And the tone that he adopts in on fairy stories seems to me to sort of strike that balance, where he doesn't say, we all know that fairies exist, but he also doesn't say, of course fairies aren't real. He leaves open the possibility that they're real, and he says, if the fairies exist, this is what they would do, or if that's the way that he talks in on fairy stories. And did he actually sort of live there? Did he? Is that actually a fair description of his own views, that he was sort of not necessarily convinced that fairies did exist, but wouldn't have been a bit surprised if it turned out that they did? I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be, because given what I know about what the medievals thought and what I know about what Tolkien thought about the medievals, I wouldn't at all be shocked to discover that was the case. Anyway, so we've got a slug. Totally unrelated to the existence of fairies, we have a putrid bog slug. Can I sneak up on a bog slug? I'm right here, but I'm going to sneak up on it anyway. Oh, I one-shotted that slug. Oh, that was just intimidating. The bog slugs are going to be running for cover when they hear about me. This is gross. These slugs are legitimately disgusting. And I'm supposed to kill 6 of them to collect their slime. Boy, the things I do for Gamer Boffin. Alright, I'm not going to go too far out of my way because I'll have plenty of other opportunities to encounter bog slugs, but, you know, just while I'm on the way. This is Needlehole, the town of Needlehole. Those of you who remember your geography, of course, the in-game geography, you'll probably remember. This is Needlehole. This is the road that goes up to the arid Lewin. That's important because that means that this is the road that the dwarves take down through the Shire, which is a common path for them, we're told. We'll get to that in a second. We got some dwarf issues here. Bounder Chubb. Oh, no, yeah, not Bounder Chubb right now. Where's who am I talking to? Who? Onar. Oh, yeah, Onar. Where's Onar? Is he up here? I think he's up the hill. All right, she says she goes to the dwarves. I'm looking for dwarves, which, you know, we could probably find in Needlehole. There he is. No, not him. Not the stable master. Okay, hey, Onar.
A lovely day, isn't it?
Oh, wow, he's just going to give them to us. That's so nice. Oh, the dwarves are so generous. Oh, yes. Generous, thoughtful, giving people the dwarves are. That's just wonderful. While we're here, and I'm jumping on people's houses, I hear that, what's his name over here? Philibert Bolger has a problem here. It's a very Shire problem. He's missing a cow. Okay, his cow is missing. This is tragic. Yesterday, a dwarf came by my farm. Okay, he wanted to buy the cow. Okay, so and then the cow vanished. He thinks that a dwarf stole his cow. That is terrible. Let's look for the cow. We're on the job. We're gonna cow hunt across the bog. Somewhere in this bog is a cow. And fortunately, my quest arrow tells me right where the cow is. So that's very convenient. Having been asked where the cow is, I have this innate sense of the cow's location, for which I'm profoundly grateful, because I only want to run into no more of these bog slugs than I absolutely have to, in order to collect a sufficient number of slime drams. Now, I don't want to be chased by buzzing gnats, because that's annoying, but I am anyway. This is kind of a nice touch, of course. You know, you'll remember that the hobbits in bogs, in particular in the Midgewater Marshes, had a problem with gnats. So they'll chase you around forever, and they don't do much damage to you, but they're very vexing. Okay, and I think, is this my last? Yay! I'm done with slugs. But anyway, cows. I was looking for cows. All right, sorry. Got distracted by... It's so easy to get distracted by slugs when you're looking for cows. We got toads. We got slugs. I don't have to kill any more slugs. But I do have to hunt for cows. Let's see. Up on top of this hill. What's up on top of this hill? Oh, there's a troll. There's a troll. Wake up, old stone. Oh, look at that. There is a Whoa. Hey, come on now. There's a petrified troll on this hill. So this troll was caught out in the middle of the bog by the morning sun. Oh, man. That was not a good move, Mr. Troll. Not a good move at all. Boy, he is ugly. Okay. So, and here's the cow, suggestively lying dead at the feet of the petrified troll. It was attacked and partially eaten by a large beast of some kind. I have a terrible fear that this is the unfortunate corpse of the lamented daffodil. So this is obviously not like, this looks suspicious, right? Troll, cow. But obviously it can't be this troll. right? We have clear contextual evidence that the troll who turned into a statue here did not steal this cow, because the name of this hill is called Troll's Knoll. That is, presumably that troll statue has been here some time, because the hill has been named after him. So that statue is clearly the statue of an historic troll, after which now the hill has been named lo these many years, and yet, the corpse lying at the feet of the troll is so suggestive. But again, see what's going on? We're in the Shire, and we need a danger to encounter, so now what are we encountering? Dwarves and trolls, right? And trolls who get petrified by the sunlight. In other words, again, we're still in Hobbit genre stuff, and I mean not just as in the genre of the Shire, but the genre of the published Hobbit, right? The almost all of the adventures that Bilbo confronts have some kind of connection, some kind of representation here in the Shire, some kind of illusion within the Shire adventures. And although, again, the adventures are a little thick on the ground from what we hear about the Shire in the books, but nevertheless, it's kind of nice that we do keep coming back to the books in the same way that we are here. Philibert, I'm afraid I have bad news. I was afraid so. What could have attacked her so horribly, and why did that dwarf take her? Because dwarves are a lot of things, but slaughtering and eating a cow on a hilltop, probably not a dwarf problem. Exactly. I need to do something. Okay, the dwarves who pass through Needlehole may not pay any mind to ordinary hobbits, but I reckon they'll listen to a Bounder of the Watch. Like me. Absolutely. Okay, so we'll tell Bounder Chubb about this. Yeah, okay. All right. We Bounders will stick together, and let's see if we can do something about this. These dwarves coming through, stealing cows, feeding them to strange monsters. Philibert's cow is dead and he suspects a dwarf. This is outrageous. Keep in mind, by the way, that of course this would be, I'm sort of making light of the missing cow, like, oh, what a and it is a pretty big problem, right? When you're in an agrarian society like this, the loss of a especially a milk cow, that's a major blow. I mean, it's a huge, it's going to be a pretty significant part of Philibert Bolger's net worth in the world is that cow, right? So it's a big deal. Most of the dwarves who pass through here are an agreeable lot, but lately there's been more than a few rascals about. I don't know this Olweir, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was one of that bad lot. All right, but I can't go off accusing dwarves of being thieves without proof. That would upset the whole lot, and we'd probably never find the one responsible. Let's talk to Ulfar. Let's kick this up the chain. There's a dwarf in authority that we can talk to. Notice the things about dwarf culture that they have suggested here, and particularly about the relationship between dwarves and the hobbits. And this all strikes me as very, very thoughtful interaction with what Tolkien says and how he presents dwarves. On the one hand, dwarves stick together, and they do not forget insults. Remember, of course, the ultimate example of this is the battle of what leads up to the battle of Azanul-Bazar, right? The war between the dwarves and the goblins that we're told happens, which culminates in that battle at Moria over the death of Thror, happened not just because goblins invaded Moria, of course, but because they insulted and killed and then desecrated the body of Thror, the heir of Durin. And not only did all of Durin's friends and relations come out of the woodwork in order to attack Azog and his goblins and avenge the insult, but all of the dwarves of all of the kindreds came out and did that, because there are some things that dwarves can't bear, and they'll stick. They will stick. Not always, but they will stick together at times like that. When they've been offended, when the dignity of the dwarves has been assaulted like that, they all band together. So it is true, you don't want to just go and making accusations against the dwarves for fear that those other, like that very nice dwarf who just gave me the brimstone just recently without even making me go on a quest for it first. they're going to turn against us, right? So we have to be careful. Up in Needlehole here, especially, where the dwarf road through the Shire comes straight through. And this road was made by dwarves, we are told. That comes from the Blue Mountains, the arid Lewin, and comes down through Needlehole, the Rushik Bog, meets up at Waymeet, and then goes out. This is the east road that then carries on out to Brioland and eventually out towards Rivendell. Whenever dwarves are traveling the east road, they come through the Shire. This is made a big deal of in, for instance, the Quest of Erebor, when Tolkien is sort of setting the context of The Hobbit. Thorin and company already have heard of hobbits. They know about hobbits, some about hobbits. They think they know about hobbits anyway, because they've seen them. They see them by the road when they walk through the Shire, and this is the road they walk through. So yeah, we get dwarves all the time in through here. Ulfar, what do you have to say? Oh, it doesn't surprise him. Yeah, these are low character dwarves. Oh dear. Okay. So there are these other dwarves crowding around a parchment. Okay, so there are these orders. All right, we can intercept some orders to find out what Olweir the dwarf is really doing. Let's go the fast way down. So we gotta collect the orders of Olweir the dwarf. See if we can find some of these bad lots. But okay, now. But perhaps you're thinking, wait a second. Dwarves are free peoples, right? They're good guys. What's up with the evil dwarf thing going on here? And why are dwarves being made into bad guys? That's not consistent with Tolkien, is it? Well, actually, yeah, it is. Let me give a little brief history of the dwarves, and by history of the dwarves, I don't mean the history of the origin of the dwarves within the story of Middle-earth as it came to be developed by the end of Tolkien's life. What I mean is where the status of the dwarves within Tolkien's thought over the course of his career, because his ideas about the dwarves change a lot over the course of time. Originally, we know about dwarves. We know Thorin, and we know Diane, and we know buzzing gnats, and we know Gimli, obviously. I love how I can defeat the gnats with my dagger, though. I've never actually attempted, I must admit, attacking a swarm of gnats with a knife, but I'm doubting it would be quite that easy if I did. I have to be totally honest with you there. Anyhow, so I better stealth myself. Okay, can I pick his pocket? Can I just indulge myself there? I have to be behind him. I probably have to be behind him. I just came straight up to his face and did that. That wasn't really very smart, was it? Hey, did you have any orders or anything, by any chance? Oh, look, you did. Let's see. Son of the dour hands and loyal to our cause. I wonder what cause that is. Word of your promise has reached my ears, and you will be great in my eyes if you can deliver on it. If a stone troll might be captured in this land called Shire, I will reward you with riches beyond any you or your fathers have seen. Do not fail in this, for punishment will come as swiftly as reward. Scoregrim Dourhand Mightiest. Okay, so that sounds bad. A stone troll, huh? Presumably not the petrified one that we met there before. Anyway, I'll have to try to pick a dwarf pocket later on. Anyway, so back to dwarves. So again, we know what dwarves come to be like, but originally it isn't so. If you go back and you read the Book of Lost Tales, the dwarves are listed with the orcs as among the people of Melko. They're bad guys. The dwarves are consistently bad guys. We don't get good dwarves. They're not quite so bad as orcs, it seems, but they're definitely not good guys. When do dwarves become good guys? When Balin knocks on Bilbo's door in The Hobbit, they become good guys. Now, one argument that I've made before, and I think is worth making again, it's easy to overestimate, again, remembering Gimli, it's easy to overestimate the goodness of the dwarves even in The Hobbit. Even in The Hobbit, if you recognize the fact that dwarves have never been good guys in Tolkien's writings up to that point. And then you actually, with an open mind, look at what how the dwarves in The Hobbit behave. It's not always really complimentary. The biggest compliment that's given to Thorin and company, the narrator says that they're decent enough folk, right? They're still calculating people with a high view of the value of money. They're kind of selfish. They're kind of shallow. They're not very competent. They do have, and I'm not trying to just undermine The Hobbit or undermine Thorin and company. And certainly where we end up with Thorin and the death of Thorin at the end, I'm not trying to say that's not a big deal, but we can see evidence that the status of dwarves, even in The Hobbit, is not that comfortable. When the king under the mountain establishes himself and the peace breaks out in the end between the Elven King and Esgaroth and Dale and the Lonely Mountain again under the rule of Dain, it's kind of a big deal that it works out. It's kind of a big deal that happens. And not something that's just kind of taken for granted, not just the natural restoration of the sort of the expected order exactly. Because not all dwarves aren't by default really to be trusted. So the fact that we get malicious dwarves, evil dwarves here, is not shocking and doesn't seem at all inappropriate. What do you make of these orders? I mean, who's this Skorgrim dude, and who are the Dour Hands? Aye, good, you found them. As I told you, that bunch is up to no good. Okay, all right. These orders weren't written by Olweir. Some dwarf named Skorgrim promises riches if Olweir can deliver, I hardly believe it, a stone troll. I've paid no mind to the old wives' tales of such creatures in the bog, but Olweir must have listened and promised one as a gift. Okay, right now any dwarf who wants a troll, that's gotta be bad. Can I have more sausages? Sausages are good. Okay. So that's who killed the cow. So they have a troll, and they fed the cow to the troll? So the other troll must have just been hobnobbing with the statue of the other troll. Maybe the statue is his ancestor or something. All right. Okay. Let's go find him. This is a fellowship quest. I'm supposed to go with like 4 or 5 other people. But I am the legendary burglar Gryfflet. I'm going to be fine. It's almost dark. The sun is setting. Look at the sunrise creeping across the sky there. So I'm fine. I'm going to go and take out the stone troll because I can't be stopped. All right. Okay, Farrar asks, is that where the petty dwarves come from? Yes. Sort of. That is, the petty dwarves are sort of the remnant. Wow, it's really complicated. Okay, Mime the dwarf was there from the beginning. In the earliest versions of the story, we get Mime the dwarf. Mime, who later on is called Mime the petty dwarf. There does seem to be... when Tolkien changed stuff, when he changed his mind and decided to do something different or totally change the character of a race such as dwarves, he rarely just pitched what he had written before. He almost never did that. Instead, what he does is like recontextualize it, right? Or just kind of tweak things a little bit. So he had Mime. Mime was always a bad guy. Mime is not an upstanding character. And in the old times, that was just he was not only an example of a dwarf, he was there. It seems by implication the example of a dwarf. Like Mime was originally like the Durin figure, essentially. He's called Durin the Ageless, I think, or Durin the Ageless. Mime the Ageless, I think he's called at one point. He's Mime the Old. He's like the most ancient of all dwarves. So Mime, from the Turin Turambar story, was in the initial version like the kingpin of the the father of the dwarves. So again, not only was he just a regular dwarf, he was the archetypal dwarf and a jerk. So that's where dwarves came from. So notice when he revises it and he's taken dwarves in a different direction, he doesn't remove meme, right, or recuperate meme. Instead, he quarantines meme, right? He makes meme the remnant of a dying group of dwarves called the petty dwarves, who are themselves apparently, well, at the very least, embittered, if not actively sort of questionable themselves. So anyway, so yeah, that's where we get them. Yeah, let me. Okay, as I'm going to fight my. I'm going to see if I can carry on this conversation while I hang on. Shh, wait, don't move. I'm going to creep up behind this guy, and I'm going to pick his pocket. Did it work? I don't think it worked. Darn it. Oh well. Okay, so I'm going to try to fight dwarves as I explain this. Did you know that there was quite a dwarf revival when The Hobbit came out? That is, not only did am I going the right way? No, I'm not going the right way. Where am I? What the heck? Sorry. Wasn't it over here? Where is that? We got dwarves down here. Where am I going? Oh, there's the palisade. I took a wrong turn there. Went up the hill when I meant to go down. Okay. All right. That's where, if I were a set of morally questionable, low-character dwarves hiding out with a stone troll, this is totally where I would go. Okay. Dwarves. So, not only when The Hobbit comes out is of course not only a time when take that. That's so satisfying. Anyway, when Tolkien wrote The Hobbit, it's not only the recuperation of dwarves sort of within his legendarium. But it's also a pretty major cultural moment for dwarves as a whole. A lot of people don't realize this. Did you know that The Hobbit was published in the same year that Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Disney's first feature film, animated feature film, came out? That happened at the same time. Those two, major phenomena. Think of the implications for 20th century culture. From 1937, right? The Hobbit and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So Tolkien, the advent of Tolkien's fantasy and of Disney movies in the same year. And of course, both of them are largely about dwarfs, right? Very heavy dwarf focus in both of those works. And this was, I think, very greatly to Tolkien's personal annoyance, as he really disliked Disney's depiction of dwarves, and he a money bag, that's got to be good. And I think that he was really annoyed by the fact that his own dwarves would be sort of inescapably associated with Disney's dwarves, especially at least in people's visual imaginations, because Disney was totally into the merchandising thing even back then, even in the very early days. So, here's Tolkien thinking, great, his the market was awash in little figurines, cheap toys and things that you would buy of Doc and Dopey and everything. And so here's Tolkien thinking, great, people are going to read The Hobbit this year. The Hobbit is finally being published, and when it is, everyone's going to read about Thorin and Balin, and they're going to be picturing Dopey. That's going to be the picture they have in their heads. So you can kind of see where that would make him a little bit irritated in the general direction of Disney. But that moment, that cultural moment, the moment of the Hobbit and of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, was such a significant cultural moment for the modern world that it's kind of hard to recover what kind of came before it. The dwarf traditions that Tolkien was working with were primarily the Norse traditions. Dwarves are not good guys in the Norse tradition at all. It's just not at all how it works. And even in the medieval traditions, you can see the same thing. Dwarves and giants are complementary bad guys, and both of them sort of equally sketchy, just in different ways. They both tend to be wicked, but again, sort of differently wicked. I'm gonna eat some cram, and I'm gonna eat some fried mushrooms because that can't hurt. Okay. So anyway, so dwarves were not good guys, but there wasn't even an expectation for them to be good guys, really, if you see what I mean by that. But again, it's hard to recover that, especially from a Tolkien perspective. It's hard to recover the days of, before Thorin and company. Before, our own opinion of dwarves is so changed by, by our encounter, by our experience with the Hobbit. Our encounter, our views change just as Bilbo's change. That, again, we kind of can't go backwards. All right, so here's this huge, look at this cage. I gotta tell you, it doesn't look to me like that's gonna hold a troll. Maybe it's sterner, maybe that cage is made of sterner stuff than it looks like. But okay, I've definitely confirmed that these dwarves are up to no good. So let's go back and talk to Ulfar before all those dwarves regen. And I have to fight them again. Alright. I'm wending my way through the palisade. We're headed back around the needle hole. Can't jump over the wall here. Okay. All right. Oh, being ambushed. So anyway, the general subject of dwarves is a really complex one and a really interesting one, and but I think just as I guess the last thing I would say is, although dwarves do become good guys in Tolkien's world as his story develops, it's not. Am I being chased? I'm being attacked from behind, having axes thrown at my back. We can't have that. Although Tolkien did make that change, although he made that adjustment, the roots of the dwarves never totally go away. There's always this sort of element of shadiness that kind of sticks to them. And even the really good dwarves, like Gimli, Gimli's family, of course, are peculiarly good dwarves. But still, there still remain memories, especially in the published Hobbit, of the way, sort of where dwarves came from in Tolkien's thought. So I like the fact that that is remembered in Lotro, right? I mean, in Lotro we get from the beginning this clan of dwarves, the Dourhands, as contrasted with the Longbeards. The Longbeards are the descendants of Durin. That's the family that Thorin and Gimli and all the rest of them come from. The clan of the Longbeards are good guys. That doesn't necessarily mean that all the other clans of the dwarves are necessarily good guys and necessarily friendly and benevolent. Lotro made up Dourhands. That phrase Okay, the phrase does occur in Tolkien, but not as a name of a dwarf clan. It occurs in the eulogy at the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. Halbarad, I think, is called a dour-handed ranger when his death is being memorialized. Spoiler. That's where the dour-handed ranger is, where that phrase does occur in Tolkien. Of course, it has nothing to do with dwarves. Okay, am I going somewhere? Okay. Oh, yeah, I just did all that for nothing, didn't I? I should pay more attention to what I'm doing. It's okay. Now I know where I'm going. Oh, well. I just killed a bunch of dwarves for no reason. But I got to talk about dwarves. That's fine. That's fine. All I need to do is talk to him again and then start the instance. Okay, fine. All right, this time I'm going to do it while paying attention to what I'm doing. That's okay. Hey, Ulfar, I already scouted this place out, man. The gate's closed up tight, but I can totally take him. Yeah, what'll get it open? Your axe? Oh, a challenge. Okay. So, I'm more of a sneaking kind of person, not a let's yell at the gates and have them come out and attack us kind of. Okay, leave now if you value your life. Oh, Ulfar stands firm against the dour hands. Yeah. Ulfar, that was not really very valiant. Okay. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? You can't do that to Ulfar. He is friendly to hobbits. I won't have it. Ugh. Yeah. Hey, no problem. You're just lucky I'm here, Ulfar. Oh, you're gonna limp now? Okay, yeah. Why don't I go on alone? Because you're gonna take forever. Okay. All right, no problem. Okay, if you're gonna keep pressure on it, Ulfar. I'll be right back. Of course, now I'm in the instance. I'm gonna have to fight more of them at a time. Can I go around them? I think maybe I will, because I'm a burglar. I'm sneaky. And I've already been here. I doubt I can sneak past these guys, but we'll try. Shh. Darn it! No problem. I can totally fight 6 dwarves at once. This is not an issue. Okay. Getting a little tense here. Okay. No problem. I've got this. And you too. Don't think I'm going to let you throw axes at my back. Okay. Alright, let's go back to sneaking. We shall now resume sneaking. Sneak my way right around them. There are only 2 of them this time. Can I sneak past them? Yes. Oh, look at me sneaking. Okay, maybe I shouldn't sneak past him. He's likely to attack me in the back. Okay. And nobody wants to be attacked in the back, right? Says the burglar. Okay. We've reached the combat intensity, but yeah, I should. I was about to start another topic, but I should totally pay attention. Okay, all right. And that's the lot. Hey, Olweir. Enough of this is right. Oh, we have a troll. Oh, Olweir serves you right. Oh, evil turns on itself. Wouldn't you know it? Okay, but it's also turning on me, so that's not so good. Oh, you think so? Oh, oh no, you didn't. Well, I think I about cut them down to size. And let that be a lesson to the lot of you. He threatens to squash me into jelly. I missed him. Was he squashing me, or was he going to squash Olweir into jelly, which he really did with much greater success. Of course, the squashing into jelly is a direct reference to how the trolls talk in The Hobbit. I like that. I appreciate being threatened to... I didn't get quite a chance to tell him that I cook better than I cook, but anyway, it's okay. I took care of that guy. All right, let me get back to Ulfar, and I need to let you guys go soon. We're just about done. Yeah, I'm running a little bit over time. I'm going to sneak past these last dwarves. Back to my injured friend Ulfar. I totally took care of business up here, Ulfar. Yes, I did. Oh, so look, and he's gonna compensate Philibert to give him money to buy a new cow. Oh, that's so nice. See, some of these dwarves are decent enough folk. They really are. Okay, let's see. Can I have a... no, I have a better pair of pants than that already, Ulfar. Ooh. Your light armor is way better than my medium armor. Is your helmet better than my pointy hat? Oh, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to... Oh, wait. You've got a sword, too? Nah. No. I'll take your robe. Thank you. Very generous. Okay. So we overcame the troll. I think with this moment of triumph, I should probably stop here. We are in Needlehall. Need to go back to Hyacinth with my brimstone and iron filings. I got drams of slug slime to deliver to Gammer Boffin. Got a busy week. Next week we'll go up into the north, and we'll discover what's going on inside there where those spiders have set up in the Bindball Wood. We'll finish that quest chain. We may get up to Scary next week as well to finally investigate maybe we even finish Lobelia's fireworks. I think we've gathered all the materials we need. Actually, no, that's true. I think next week we're going to head out to Stock. I think that's where we're going to go. So we're going to go out to the east. Not yet up to the north, but we're getting there. We haven't finished exploring the East Farthing. But yeah, I'm gonna let everybody go this week. Thanks for joining me. It's been a lot of fun streaming with you here this week. Sorry for some technical difficulties here at the beginning, but glad we got things sort of more or less sorted out here moving forward. But thanks everybody, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for listening, and Godspeed.